Breaking news. On the inside, Prigozhin's mutiny transformed all of Russia. After a month, it's clear that the aftermath of Wagner mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin's brief uprising has been very different from what many predicted. No major steps have been taken against the country's ultra-patriots, aside from the arrest of the former Donbass separatist commander Igor Girkin, and neither has Wagner been radically restructured nor has Prigozhin been murdered or imprisoned. Russian life has returned to a normal state. A sense that the regime as we know it will never be the same again persists, however. The uprising led by Prigozhin altered the perspective of Russia's ruling class and will have lasting effects on the country's politics. Following the events, Prigozhin was asked why he seized a military headquarters in Rostov-on-Don and sent a column of troops toward Moscow, and he was quoted as saying, "I had a meltdown." That makes a lot of sense. Wagner's controversial practice of recruiting new soldiers from Russia's prisons was halted in January, and the private army was allegedly being starved of ammunition while Prigozhin's communication channels with Putin were severed. There was a breaking point when the Defense Ministry insisted that Wagner fighters sign a contract. The events of the insurrection, Wagner's deployment, Putin's angry reaction, Prigozhin's panic at being on the verge of seizing Moscow, the deal brokered by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, and Wagner's decision to stand down, all occurred with dizzying speed. The meeting between Putin and Wagner commanders on June 29 appears to have been the final act, with the commanders apologizing and agreeing to move to Belarus. In retrospect, it was clear that there had been some sort of misunderstanding. The conflict escalated to deadly levels because Putin didn't realize how radicalized Prigozhin had become. While Wagner was doomed to irrelevance, Prigozhin erroneously believed he could strong-arm Putin into reorganizing the military's leadership. It appears to have been settled for the time being. Prigozhin now realizes that his attempt to use force was wrong, and Putin no longer views him as a dangerous traitor but rather as a patriot who temporarily lost sight of himself amidst the horrors of war. However, Prigozhin has been exiled to Belarus after losing everything in the wake of the rebellion, including his media empire, a portion of his business, and most importantly, his reputation as a war hero. And it would appear that the Kremlin is attempting to disrupt Wagner. Alexei Troshev, who has apparently signed a contract with the Defense Ministry and been designated as a successor to Prigozhin by Putin, is the new leader being pushed on the unit's commanders. Putin's dilemma and Lukashenko's headache is figuring out what to do with several thousand Wagner soldiers in Belarus. However, it appears that the Kremlin has decided the former mutineers cannot remain in Russia. Prigozhin's mutiny was, without a doubt, the most important domestic political event in Russia since Putin came to power nearly a quarter of a century ago, and this is before the dust has even settled. The Defense Ministry is widely seen as the biggest winner. This allowed Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu to look into Prigozhin's allies within the military, including General Sergei Surovikin, the main go-between for the Defense Ministry and Wagner. However, the mutiny did more harm than good to the reputation of Russia's military leaders and helped bring to light resentment that had been building up lower in the ranks. Major General Ivan Popov, the highly regarded commander of Russia's 58th Combined Arms Army, was recently transferred to Syria following a disagreement with Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov. There are rumors circulating on Russian telegram channels that the 106th Airborne Division's leader, Major General Vladimir Seliverstov, and the commander of Russia's airborne forces, Colonel General Mikhail Teplitsky, will be removed from their positions. These shifts appear less like a purge of Prigozhin allies and more like a reaction to damage to Gerasimov and Shoigu's authority. Putin may eventually feel compelled to find replacements for the two men. As the leader of Russia's National Guard, Viktor Zolotov was expected to benefit from the mutiny's aftermath. After the uprising, the Russian parliament did pass a law granting Rosgvardia the ability to acquire heavy military equipment, and it was also announced that an anti-narcotics special forces unit would be integrated into Rosgvardia. But that doesn't give Zolotov any newfound credibility. You need a budget if you want to buy heavy military equipment, and even if you get it, the Ukrainian government will put the military's needs first. Some things have gone against Zolotov as well, such as the recent passage of a law that gives governors the authority to form their own military units. A fragmentation of Russia's security services appears to be developing, contrary to widespread expectations that the Kremlin would try to reclaim a monopoly on violence in the wake of the uprising. New conflicts will emerge as interagency competition heats up, further undermining the stability of the country as a whole. Russia's intelligence services were the real winners in this mutiny. The FSB was successful in their mission to apprehend Gherkin, one of the most extreme, ultra-patriots. While he is serving a life sentence, in absentia, in the West for his role in the 2014 downing of Flight MH17 over eastern Ukraine, in which 298 people were killed, in Russia he is accused of extremism for criticizing Putin's approach to the campaign in Ukraine. While this was going on, the SVR was able to promote its long-held belief in the Polish threat, Poland's purported desire to occupy western Ukraine and Belarus. Putin recently spoke at a Security Council meeting and met with Lukashenko, where he discussed Poland's nefarious plans. Regardless of what has been said about Poland, it is highly unlikely that Wagner will lead an armed incursion into northern Ukraine or anywhere near the Polish border. No major crackdown on so-called ultra-patriots is planned, either. The Kremlin still considers them an important cog in the pro-war consensus it hopes to strengthen in the years leading up to the 2024 presidential election. Putin was the one who took the biggest hit from the uprising. Despite his current sense of assurance, he made a mistake. He made a monster that got away from him and terrified the ruling class. Everyone could see that the Kremlin was at a loss for action, and that Prigozhin had gotten off relatively lightly. Putin's leadership skills as Russia's president have been called into question. The power vertical that Putin so boasted about no longer exists. While the dozens of mini Prigozhins may be more predictable than Wagner's leader, they pose just as much a threat. Even though Putin is still in control, everyone there is aware that a post-Putin Russia has arrived and that it is time to arm and get ready for a struggle for control. Putin retaliates against arrest warrant by placing ICC judge on wanted list. The Russian government now considers a judge from the International Criminal Court to be a wanted individual. According to official Russian media, International Criminal Court Judge Tomoko Akane has joined her fellow ICC judge Rosario Salvatore Itala on Russia's most wanted list. Last month, Itala joined the ranks of those included. The database does not provide a crime or accusation that would explain why the two lawyers are there. The International Criminal Court issued a warrant for Putin's arrest in March on charges of kidnapping children from Ukraine. The International Criminal Court claimed that Putin is allegedly responsible for the war crime of unlawful deportation of population, children, and that of unlawful transfer of population, children, from occupied areas of Ukraine to the Russian Federation. The International Criminal Court, ICC, has issued an arrest warrant for Maria Alexeyevna Lvova-Belova, the Russian Federation's Commissioner for Children's Rights, citing reasonable grounds to believe that each suspect bears responsibility for the war crime of unlawful deportation of population and that of unlawful transfer of population from occupied areas of Ukraine to the Russian Federation, in prejudice of Ukrainian children. Although the Rome Treaty of 1998 formalized the ICC as an international judicial body, the court didn't begin operating out of its permanent home in The Hague, Netherlands, until 2002. 123 countries have confirmed the treaty's authority in international prosecution by ratifying it.